We're continuing on our ride with Tomas and Karin. After a few more hours of driving, we'd arrived at Fox Glacier.
Lunchtime behind us.
The four of us took a stroll around pristine Matheson Lake. The stunning views of Mount Cook in the southern Alps were only magnified by the water's reflection. It was a lovely evening to be walking through the rainforest around the lake. Our view of things was constantly changing. If we weren't looking at the mountains on our way around, the lush vegetation had my attention. While Tomas and Karin planned to take a guided walk on the glacier, Siobhan and I were hiking to it. The glacier, in its lifetime, has never advanced upon this area and disturbed it. After emerging from the woods, we continued on the trail, making our way up the valley. We walked for about an hour. Across from Fox Glacier, we reached a viewpoint. It was a good spot for lunch. Afterwards, we backtracked and headed directly to the glacier. This sign we found interesting, and wasted no time traversing. When we made it to the parking lot, we found the Kias to have taken interest in this car. Then we saw the sign. Kias are notable for their curiosity, playfulness, and being the only alpine parrot in the world. We continued on the trail from the parking lot towards the glacier, but found you couldn't actually get up onto it unless in a tour. So we did the next best thing. We sat, rested our feet, and enjoyed the view. Tomas and Karin were up on the glacier somewhere. The next morning we were to take them up on their offer to continue driving south with them. It's true that it's the folk you meet, local or not, which make up a great part of the travel experience. We left Fox Glacier for Wanaka, headed toward the Haast Pass. There are many rivers that drain the mountains, and a walk next to the Haast River was in order. This waterfall was a nice diversion, but I really liked the footbridge. We stopped now and again to gawk at the dramatic scenery. If nothing else, it was good to get out of the van and stretch the legs. We arrived that evening in Wanaka, on the shores of Lake Wanaka. After sorting out accommodation and a meal, we met and had drinks with Tomas and Karin. They were heading north the next day, and we south. Milford Sound was our destination. For this next leg of our trip, Siobhan and I were told it would be best to rent a car. They said hitching in that isolated region of the South Island was really difficult, as much of the traffic to and from Milford Sound were tour buses. Of course, driving at times wasn't always so fast. Our route took us by Queenstown and over the Wairau River. With the Remarkables mountain range behind us, we had lunch in a quiet spot next to Lake Wakatipu. Having such a fantastic spot all to ourselves, we enjoyed the afternoon. Hesitantly, we pushed on. Still, we found time to pull over and study the scenery. And it seemed to study us right back. We continued on into the area known as Fiordland. We arrived in Te Anau before dusk to spend a night in a cabin at the local campground. Calling it simply a box might have been more precise. Now that we were in this damp, mountainous region, a change in the climate could be felt. Luckily for us, the clear weather was holding out. This morning, Siobhan and I struck out early for Milford Sound, through some of the most majestic landscape on the South Island. Through the upper Hollyford Valley we drove, and into the heart of Fiordland. In 1953, after 18 years of labor, this rugged, isolated region was first accessed by road, with the completion of the Homer Tunnel. We were told that after entering, it descended sharply, and it did, for the next 10 minutes. Upon arriving at Milford Sound, we got tickets on one of the many ships that cruise it. We sailed on a replica of an old trading vessel that once plied these waters. After all the effort to get out here, we were excited to be underway. Our voyage was a leisurely one, and we settled in and tried to watch everything as we cruised by. The voyage was turning out to be as enjoyable as the scenery. As the crew worked, our guide told of immense ancient glaciers, which had carved out the fjords we were now sailing in. Hundreds of meters deep, they're home to a large variety of marine life. It was a kick seeing these seals lounging, both in and out of the water. With an annual rainfall of over 6 meters, the fjords are also host to numerous waterfalls. Our captain was intent on giving us the closest of views. Though part of the ocean, the fjord's water has a fresh layer on top. This can be up to 6 feet after heavy rains. As we journeyed to the entrance of the fjord, the wind began to pick up. After sailing to this point, with towering cliffs on either side, seeing the open ocean only served to magnify its beauty. It made you feel quite small, and then, upon seeing the ocean, you knew you were. Pictures can't really capture the scale of things in the fjord. For instance, the waterfall in the background is 500 feet in height, and this cliff rises 1,200 feet from the water. Below the surface, it goes down another 600 feet. We enjoyed the rest of our journey on the boat, eventually getting back to the harbor around noon. After a bite to eat, we returned the way we'd come, stopping occasionally where we hadn't on the drive out. We decided to stay the night in Queenstown and continue back to Wanaka in the morning. Back in Wanaka, we lucked out to find the A&P fair going on. As I'd never been to a real country fair, this was a treat. We arrived in time for the sheepdog trials, an interesting event where a man and dog move a flock of sheep through an obstacle course and into a pen.
Very good record of driving yard.
The teams score points on how well they negotiate the obstacles and gates.
Two of the best in the country. Is born out.
The dog was slow and precise, and Siobhan and I were rooting for him.
Where the skill comes in. Waiting. It's a very good yard. The trophy that is being competed for this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, will escape.
There were heaps of different things on display. Just about everything a farmer could want, from portable mills to tractors and exotic livestock.
Idea we were breeding good animals for meat. Don't take it away from beginning to wonder if there's something wrong with them.
The judging area for the foods, produce, and crafts was worth a look. There were heaps of items in many categories. I think this was my favorite picture. After a while, it was like walking in a museum, and I'd seen my fill. The beer stand outside seemed to be a local favorite. We learned a bit about sheep as we wandered, never realizing there could be so many grades of wool. New Zealand has a population of approximately 3.5 million people, and the sheep outnumber them 20 to 1. Over 60 million all told. The fair carried on all day, culminating with the horse jumping competition. It almost seemed out of place to me, with all the emphasis on sheep. I guess they gotta do it. Afterwards, we walked down to the lakeside to enjoy the last light of day. Hitching the next morning, we got on the road heading north now. We were working our way back to Christchurch, but would stop along the way. Though unpredictable, hitching had been a great way to get around the South Island, especially when you had the time. We got a lift soon enough, arriving in the early afternoon at our destination, Lake Tekpo. The lake is a peculiar aqua blue due to the glacial flowers suspended in its waters. Washed down from the glaciers above, it's produced by their grinding on the rocks beneath them. It's said that the night skies above Tekpo are some of the clearest in the southern hemisphere. I guess it's only fitting that they have an observatory here, atop neighboring Mount St. John. Though not open to the public, you can walk around the summit and enjoy the views that are there. Relaxing by the lake one afternoon, we were set upon by this cat. He stuck around for ages. After starting back to the campground, we didn't know if he was showing us the way, following, or just wanting a bit of company. We stayed only for a few more days. Sorry we had to say goodbye to Nathan and Rebecca. We sorted out a car relocation, north, to the port of Picton. Then we took a ferry over to Wellington, the capital of New Zealand. Transportation was to be varied on this journey, that was for sure. It reminded us of island hopping in Indonesia. The islands were much different, but just as stunning. We planned to catch the train to Auckland. After hanging out in the station and people watching for a good few hours, the train boarded. Once aboard, we settled in and enjoyed the twilight landscape as we rode by. In Auckland, we were to stay with some old friends, Tony and Geraldine, and their baby, Alex. Tony had arranged some work for me. We'd end up staying in Auckland a month, catching up with our friends, and myself trying to bolster our travel money.
That's not actually an island, it's a peninsula right up.
On weekends, we were taken far and wide. The surrounding countryside wasn't enchanting enough. Our destination proved to be Piha Beach was the location for the movie The Piano. Close to Auckland, it was a nice place to escape to. Finding a suitable plot, we pitched a blanket and had a picnic. Closer to the city was Rangitoto Island in Auckland Bay. Accessible only by ferry, we'd spend the day hiking, enjoying its views. We've now been on the road for 11 months, and it was time to start the last leg of our trip. We were off to Rarotonga in the Cook Islands group. It was to be sort of a vacation from traveling. The arrival lounge had entertainment. It was like a scene from a South Seas movie. Things were perfect. We got lucky regarding accommodation on Rarotonga. Through the uncle of a friend, we found a holiday apartment with very friendly landlords, his girlfriend's parents. The place had loads of character. Our proprietor owned a bakery and brought home loaves of day-old bread. That explained the ever-present chicken population. Before dawn each morning, volleys of roosters crowing awakened us. This began the ritual of sticking in earplugs at the first cluck. To my chagrin, I found Siobhan buying extra bread herself to feed them. Soon enough, we succumbed to the slow-paced lifestyle. Swimming, long walks, and beach combing for shells amounted for most of our time. You had to be careful, though. Some of the best finds were already taken. As much as we enjoyed our days on Rarotonga, we always looked forward to the sunset. It seemed to be the proper end to a day. One afternoon in the town of Avarua, we stumbled upon the island's Veterans Day ceremonies. A somber mood prevailed, but you could sense the pride in the people. Declared a British protectorate in 1888, Rarotonga came under New Zealand's control in 1891. Though independence was gained in 1965, its people still retain New Zealand citizenship rights and serve in its armed forces. Most every day during our stay, it would rain some. This served to show a different side of the island's beauty. Luckily, it never hung around all day, but if nothing else, it did seem to quiet the chickens. Wash day was interesting, as we'd never used a machine like this before. My grandmother had one with a mangler. I'd been warned to steer clear of it on more than one occasion. Here I had to have a go. We rented a motorbike for a week while we were on the island, and made good use of it. Often we came to Muri Lagoon to swim and sunbathe in its beautiful setting. One day, while driving about, we met this family getting ready to put out their fishing net. They're going to catch some herring from a school that had found its way into the lagoon. The father told us that the fish in this lagoon were for everyone and were never to be sold. In other lagoons on the island, fish caught had been sold, and subsequently, the catch there was poor in comparison. Everyone helped with corralling the fish, bringing in the net and tossing the slippery ones ashore, ourselves included. We were given some fish as a gift for our dinner. It looked tasty, but I think I was going to cook mine first. It was a low tide now, and we noticed the area changing. All these fiddler crabs in the mud flat were coming out of their burrows to feed. Because of their great numbers, they were amazing to watch. In response to any danger, they'd instantly disappear. Then, after a time, reappear again to feed. While we entertained ourselves with the crabs, the family was going about resetting their net. We got back on the motorbike and headed back to prepare our dinner. Next day, feeling energetic, perhaps because of the clear weather, I hiked up Te Manga, the highest point on Rarotonga. As I ascended, the jungle's beauty was an interesting distraction. The trail up wasn't bad, though steep at times, it was easy to follow. I wasn't prepared for the stunning views at the summit. They were in every direction. Siobhan was somewhere down there, swimming in the lagoon. and I was to meet her in a couple of hours. Enjoying the tranquility of my perch, I had a long lunch at the top. I stayed at the summit for a good long while, enjoying its incredible views, feeling like I was on top of the world. On the way back down, I noticed views that I'd missed on the way up. I could see the precariousness of the trail I was on. The sunset once again capped off the day, and there we were with our stray dogs to enjoy it. Siobhan befriended those that wandered our neighborhood. For them, we also had to visit the local butcher. The 12 days we spent on Rarotonga eventually came to an end, and we readied for the flight home. It wouldn't be hard not living out of a backpack anymore, at least for a while.